man. How are you?
Fantastic. I was just playing with my baby, and it's a beautiful autumn day. Got up early, did a little painting, and I'm in a great mood. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah. Not too bad, thanks. Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
How are things in New York at the moment?
I'm all right. Yeah. People are really good at wearing masks, and people are really good at wearing masks in New York City. I'm really happy and proud of that. There's obviously some people who aren't good at it in the city, but by and large, everyone's really safe, and the vibe seems all right. Considering all things. But I don't know. I was talking about this with a friend recently who came over apologizing for saying like, "Oh, things are pretty good," feeling like there's like that the caveat has to be made, like, "Oh, despite COVID and despite like the U.S. like somehow teetering on like a fascist state and like racial inequities and police and like having to, it's all like so obvious and glaringly horrific, that the all things considering caveat is kind of just like, I don't even need to do that anymore. I'm just going to say how I am right now, and things are great right now. I don't know. I wish the same for everybody else, and I hope that love projection will kind of help us work through these like some seriously horrible things going on in the States anyways, throughout the world.
I feel like even before everything kicked off with COVID, it was already quite a charged time almost in the States. Things were already quite heightened.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And it's not new, like it's not new. In the last couple years, especially with like mass shootings, that was something that was really, I mean, not starting to bother me, always bothered me, made me sick. It's horrific. The gun laws in the United States is despicable, but the mass shootings were becoming commonplace, and the memory for them was as short as your memory for an episode of whatever bullshit television program there was. And that was really kind of, that was making me pretty sick. Events like that leading up to COVID, and then this kind of like disintegration, like the disintegrating of a lot of things around us in the United States and globally. It has two faces. It has like the bubbling, horrific, monstrous faces of like the now, of like the horror, but the kind of the rising to the surface of these multifaceted global issues and problems is something that I think is necessary for people to maybe be a little more interested in becoming aware and proactive about whatever it is the issue is that like affects them the most: guns, the environment, racial inequity, police injustice, or like seemingly like a resurgence in global fascism or the mentality of, and I understand like the correlations between capitalist society, fascist states, kind of the global war machine, and the way that that feeds into capitalism and back and forth, and all of that distilled down. We really have just like, like the overarching importance of money over humanity. And I'm hoping that all of this is going to help ground some people or open up some more people's eyes to humanity and life force and love and spirituality and connectedness to earth is actually kind of at the core, and what needs to be regained, like the relatives of indigenous cultures around the world, like they all like have like a common thread, and that is like the world seems lost and fraught and crumbling because there's a huge disconnection between the spiritual human and the connectedness to earth. And to be clear, that's not in the form of organized religion, but there is like a great divide now between like us as a conscious entity that is capable of all of these grand, imaginative, and loving things, so much ability to create and to share and to like create a collective consciousness that affects real change, but like the lines were severed, and like, what is it called? The chickens are coming home to roost or something like that. It's not just now, it's thousands of years of this like slow removal from our interconnectivity or our belief in one another, you know? And that's not to say that it's gone. It's just that hopefully it's coming back. Hopefully today's horrors are equaling, you know, kind of tomorrow's like grandeur and unity and I don't know, like you never know what you have until it's gone, only on a macroscopic scale, you know, rather than just like, oh, my girlfriend left town and I really miss her, you know, like, geez, she's really awesome, you know, or whatever the case may be. This is kind of like a global reckoning of you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And I think like ancient peoples knew that or had a little bit more of it. And now like I said, in this macroscopic scale, with time and with size, you know, like hopefully we're all kind of going like, fuck, man, it was really a lot better when we like trusted in nature and we trusted in intuition and trusted in, you know, spirituality and life force and things like that, you know.
I mean, I think it's really been sped up as well, that transition and that removal of ourselves from that environment over the last kind of, I don't know, maybe 50 or so years, kind of since technology has really started to take off and we're now in this internet age. It feels like it's just accelerating at an unprecedented rate that it hasn't before.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like specific to the time that we've lived in. I mean, I think that every generation feels its technological boom, or it's like the things aren't the way that they used to be, and there's like a rejection and an upheaval, and then there's the other people who open it or who openly accept it. So like I feel like that's all like relative to a generation or to a time, but like I feel like just in like, you know, when you were like a 5-year-old or something and your parents drove you to a friend's house in the next town over, we know now it's a 20-minute drive, but relative to your age, it feels like forever. You don't even have a comprehension of how long you were actually in the car, but it was forever. And then you finally got there and whatever you had your experience. But like the perception of time being relative to the age you're at and your knowledge of how time passes, you know, like when you're younger, you don't have those much to latch onto to compare to. So when you're younger, everything seems longer. And when you're older, everything seems shorter. With the technology now, society is in this kind of like elderly state, or this iteration of global societies are in this elderly state, and everything's going quickly, and we're seeing the transition from like the industrial age and, you know, the mechanical things into this like blooming technological age. And of course, like the heart of the technological age is acceleration, you know, is like how much better can we make something. And that's always at the root of technology, of course, but like this particular iteration of technology, this is not like a spear that turns into a crossbow or to a bow and arrow or something like that, which obviously takes a lot of, you know, like it took time to get there. This is like one that wants to be fast, you know, like its relevance of how good a technology it is how much does this improve on the last version and how quickly did we do that. So it's just like this kind of ever spinning wheel. It's getting faster and faster. And I think like, you know, our generation or the generations that you and I are in, and obviously the satellite ones around it before mine and after ours and stuff like that, they're really like witnessing this like extreme ramp up in a lot of things. Technology, you know, is as one example, and it just seems exponentially fast. And it is from our standpoint, you know, but I guess going back to thinking of like time in like macroscopic ways, you know, or, you know, like I always love that analogy, like compared to the age of the universe, like humanity is like a little half of a second or something like that, you know, like what we're in right now is just mind-boggling to us, and it comes on so quickly. I guess I'm not really coming to a point. I'm just like curious, like did people in like the Renaissance or something, when like science and religion were kind of clashing for in a major time period, like was there the same general feeling like everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? Why are people not believing in the Lord anymore? Why are people, you know, like fuck, everything is happening way too quick. This needs to stop. Or, you know, other people like, I need to embrace this. But like, you know, I just wonder, like, is this just part of another like go around the wheel, or is this unique? My personal thought is it tends to seem like another revolution around the wheel, but more in like a spiraling forward sense, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like, we've been here before, but this is a new iteration of consciousness that we've all been in before, but like just the elements are tweaked a little bit. You know, it's a computer now versus a stone tool thousands of years ago or something. You know,
I think people as well would be less afraid if they realized that, if they kind of realized it was just, it's part of life and it's not unique and it is part of the cyclical thing, and sort of realize their insignificance a wee bit more, and just helps to put things in perspective, and there can be a real comfort in that.
hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I think so. I agree with that, and I hope there is. It's not an easy conclusion to come to. I'm going to make a huge assumption here, but the general global population doesn't spend lots of time thinking about these grander ideas, you know. I mean, that's a huge assumption, which is obviously flawed, and that is also unfair to everybody, because as a conscious entity or a human, you are a human because those questions are ever present. But there's just a lot of like fuzz, and there's a lot of distractions, and I think many people like to take the choice of a distraction rather than like pondering these ideas or whatever. I guess ultimately a shame, because it's like, you know, one of our key attributes that I don't want to say separate. Well, yeah, okay. So it separates us from other animals. If you're not allowing yourself to spend time with the wise, you know, then it's really easy to get caught up in the distractions, money and politics and violence and, you know, all of the things that just don't really help progression. Although I'll be very not contradictory, but I'll go back and forth in this conversation. If I'm in a nice rambling mood right now, so I'll talk myself to the end of something and be like, well, you can't really have any progress without huge destruction or detriment or like antithetical reasoning, you know. Yeah, I'll go from like a chaotic understanding of the universe to an ordered understanding, and back and forth in the course of this conversation. So, yeah. um,
What you were saying at the start of that, where I think you're quite right as well, that the global population as a whole maybe don't think about a lot of these things.
mhm.
At what point did you kind of realize you were in the minority in terms of just kind of wondering about pondering these things, like day to day?
Mm, That's okay. Yeah, it's an assumption I'm in the minority. I think we should just put it on like a gray scale, that everybody is involved in this type of thinking. But like from my standpoint, it's like most people are not at the level of like universal pondering. That's dangerous to say, not at the level. But like, doesn't it make sense that if the majority of people were invested in thinking about the history of the earth, the nature of time, like philosophical ponderings about the self versus nature, or about the inner self or spirituality, or like, you know, like if the majority of people were invested in that, really invested in that, we would have populations, or we would have a global population that was more easily unified, you know? It seems to make sense to me, but it also, I don't, like there'd be many, maybe, you know, millions and millions and millions of people will hear this podcast. Billions of people will hear this podcast, and they'll say like, I disagree with you. I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew, you know, like, okay, so there's some like religions, or like, you know, like I believe in whatever, I believe in my own energy, I believe whatever it is, or I believe in, you know, like in science. And then to all of them, that is their concerned effort to understand themselves and humanity. To assume that people aren't putting in the work, I guess, is like pretty dangerous. I think I'm just pretty optimistic, and I wish that more people would just like make the straight line between like, we are eternal beings, we are best suited to one another when we embrace love and imagination and productivity, and we nurture our environment, you know, like that is the equivalent of eating some nice food and exercising a little bit and reading a book, making a painting, listening to music, whatever, like, exercising like the creative unconscious, rather than placing your anchored beliefs on human constructions like money or status or any of these things that are gigantic distractions from what the base of being human is, like, yeah, getting confused by the things that we made. It's like we made our own shiny object and then we're like transfixed by it, and then like if anyone tries to take it away from us, we want to kill them or something. And it's like, you fucking made it. Like, just put it down for a minute. I don't know.
I was gonna say, you mentioned something there like the creative unconscious. When you're creating art, how much of your time is kind of spent in that headspace?
There's like transitional periods, bigger and smaller. Like, I've done a lot of different series of works, and I'll make anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred paintings or sculptures that are in the same general body of work. And when I transition from, say, a sculptural series to a painting series, there's a heightened unconscious time there where it's more of like a trust and intuition. And I'm kind of like walking through a door or bridging a gap, or, whatever the analogy is, from one understanding of how to work and how I'm going to think into the next. And that's when I'm really like unconsciously tapping into what my brain wants to do or what my imagination wants to do. And then once I'm in a series, I usually like kind of like get over to the other side. An example, like a sculpture series to a painting series. I've gone through the door, now I'm working on paintings now. They're mostly intuitive, they're pretty rough. I believe that I can sense a spirit in them. I can sense like something in them that just that works for me or resonates, and then I know, like, okay, I'm going to continue with this, and then I continue with that specific series and refine it, expand my understanding of it, make it a little more concise. And then in all that time, I'm understanding myself more and understanding that particular body of work. While I'm in that refining process, there's certainly moments where I let the painting or the object mutate a little bit. I'm making, this current series of work is these night car paintings. You can check them out on my website. These are some new ones I made, and there's like, these are part of a formula. Since this isn't a visual thing, I'll just say there's one painting that has a car driving through some steep mountain cliffs. It's nighttime. The headlights are beaming straight forward, and there's two crescent moons, or they're just planets, but there's two crescent moon shapes in the sky. They appear almost like some eyes. There's kind of like a gateway look to it, a little bit of a vaginal look to it. The whole thing kind of resembles a face. The entire environment resembles somewhat of a face. And then the one on the right is more of a understandable landscape, in that there's two trees at night. There's a car again with its headlights on and light emanating from the car. And those lights are casting big shadows into the distance. And again, there's two planets. This time they resemble the planet Saturn. There's two of those in the sky as well. So both of those are examples of like a format that I'll replicate over and over again, and I'll change the colors and the cars always, they augment, everything augments slightly, but you have like the basic foundation for what that painting's going to look like. So those ones have small tweaks, but then like within this series, I'm just working on this one now. So this one is like, kind of a mutation of the formula. This one is kind of replicating the mountain scene that I described to you, only now in the same picture plane, there are three sets of mountains all next to each other. If the one car coming in between the mountains is a single reality or a single environment, now I've taken three of them and put them in the same picture plane. So they're all existing together. They're all identical in form, in that there's a road going through some mountains and two planets in the sky, but there's three of them in the same picture plane. So this is kind of what I'm talking about with like a mutation within a series that I've already defined the boundaries of. That's how I'll expand any series. So I'll keep working on that one. I'll probably make a number of those. I'll work a series until I end up kind of just stumbling onto the next one. These are on shaped canvases. They're masonite boards with canvas stretched around them, and the boards are hand cut with a jigsaw, so they have this really warbly, uneven, almost like hand drawn perimeter to them. And those are the result of a previous series of paintings. I could go on and on about where that came from in the previous one, but there's kind of always this like transition from one set to the next. And then, like a mutation in one will lead to the next series, and then that series will be defined and then expanded, and then there'll be a mutation towards the end of that series, and I'll go into the next one. And I found that that's been the best way for me to work over the years, and for me to feel like I'm progressing and I'm not just painting the same thing over and over again.
This is a really fascinating exhibition as well, because you had the physical exhibition itself, with the paintings displayed, but then you've also got a book from it, and you did mixtapes and stuff as well for it.
Oh yeah.
You're kind of expanding all these mediums.
Yeah. I mean, years ago, I used to like I've done like lots of fun stuff. I used to make t-shirts and patches and zines, and I got into miniatures. I made, for a while, I was making miniature hamburgers. I was taking corn kernels and carving them to resemble a hamburger shape, and then painting them like a hamburger and selling them online, because I wanted to see how much money I could make selling corn kernels to people. And it was kind of in more of my cynical days, but like people would buy, I would sell them for $10 a piece. I mean, they were cute. They looked exactly like a miniature hamburger. I put them on a little fake piece of like looked like crumpled up greasy wrapping paper and stuff. Put it in a little ring box with some not blue velvet, some blue felt, it looked really cute. And send it to people. On the inside of the lid, it said, you've made another great choice or something. You made another great decision. I thought I was being funny, but then afterwards I was like, that's kind of like an asshole thing to say, like basically telling someone you tricked them out of $10 so they could buy a piece of corn, or something. Yeah, so the book and the tapes, I feel like those came from like feelings like long ago, or like things I've already done. Like I do like making like kind of usable objects, like paintings and sculptures are largely unusable in a practical sense. They're a lot more abstract, figuratively and literally sometimes, of course, but the tape is something that you can listen to, and then obviously, like the music can generate feelings, and the music isn't mine, and the book as well is like, and the book, it reads mostly like a children's book. They're one sentence each page, very simple to follow, with a picture that is a pretty clear description of what you're seeing. It's also quite poetic. So in that sense, the book, the tape, I like to lend the abstractness of a painting or a sculpture to something that has like a tangible purpose, And the mixtapes were just like my friend Sean Carpenter. He's just a really good friend, and he's made mixtapes for years. He used to be a DJ years and years ago, like 15 years ago. He was DJing a lot of like soft rock in Los Angeles, just around at some bars and stuff like that. And he's always been a big fan of metal, heavy metal, and what a lot of people refer to as yacht rock, but we're kind of not really into that phrase. But that's one of those geeky music things. It's like, oh, it's so popular, so now I hate it or something. But yeah, like kind of like some smooth jams, So he was having DJ sets and making these tapes for his friends. One way or another, just in conversation with him, we're like, oh, we should make a Nightcar tape. Nightcar is the name of the series of paintings that I was just describing. And so I was like, cool, I'll make all the covers. And we made the mix together. He has a large vinyl collection, so he's pretty adamant about recording it from his vinyl collection onto the oh geez, hang on just a second. Hello? Okay, quick sidebar. We just had a baby, and this and as a nice gift, my mom got us this thing, like gave us like some money for Instacart, which is basically someone goes grocery shopping for you, which is like it's fine, but like we have a grocery store across the street from us, but it's this nice gift, and so we did it. It couldn't be the more infuriating thing. I could have done like 10,000 loads of groceries in the time it took for all this to happen, and then like, oh, we're gonna replace this with that. So like, if you like this certain kind of cheese and they're out of it, they're like, well, we'll just pick one for you, and they send you texts. It's like fucking infuriating. And so now they're just at the door like a day later, and they have it, and so that's what just happened. The groceries are here. Okay, but the night car tapes just came about organically. We decided to make a mix. He records from his vinyl collection. We kind of went back and forth for a few months, like what's going to go on this mix. It's partially about like what could be playing on the tape deck inside this car, this mysterious car who's kind of transferring through realities at night, but also in the vein of like some smooth jams, some like ethereal stuff, kind of some like 80s stuff. We had a lot of fun with it. I've done 2 iterations of it now. The first one I just kind of sold through Instagram, made a couple $100. I sent a bunch to him to get ice cream for his kid, and then I kept some to, I don't know, get ice cream for me, I suppose. But this iteration I sold for charity for an organization that helps ex-felons get the right to vote in Florida, which is a really important state in the United States. It's kind of on the line between voting for Trump or Biden, and they have these laws. Technically, if you're a felon who's done your time, you have the right to vote. The Republican part of the government made it so they technically couldn't until they paid off every fee they have related to their jail sentence. And so oftentimes when you're a felon, you're unemployable or very hard to employ, or at least make the kind of money where you have any chance to pay off these fines. And so there's an organization that raised a lot of money to pay off the fines for many thousands of felons down there, to give them the right to vote again. There's some headlines in the States about it. It's really kind of like you got to go for what you can, because you could pay off the debts of some felon who's just like, yeah, I love Trump, I love fascism, I'm a fucking Nazi, and now I can fucking express myself through this guy, and I had this debt, and like, that's always a risk. But there's certain projections and statistics that kind of led this organizations and others to believe, like, if enough money gets dumped into this, they'll free up enough votes to just at least help make it possible for that state to vote in a democratic way that would help unseat Trump. So this tape, I raised a little bit of money for that. The track list is fun. Since you're into music, you might be interested to know what's on it.
Yeah.
So side A, Lunatic Fringe by Red Rider, Sniffin' the Tears, Driver's Seat, Blue Oyster Cult, I Love the Night. That song is just like, I fucking love that song so much. Yeah. I did an animation to it. I like slowed it down like 70% and made this animation of a car being eaten by the night over and over again, and just played it.
Oh, I saw that on your Instagram, yeah.
Yeah. The day's okay and the sun can be fun, but I live to see those days slip away. Did I repeat days? I don't know.
I think you got it.
Yeah, thanks. Ultimate Spinach, the Hip Death Goddess, Talk, Mirror Man, Pink Floyd, Obscured by the Clouds, Parliament, The Placebo Syndrome, Pablo Moses, In the Future. This is a record I found a long time ago just in the store. I was like, there's this like dub reggae dude on the cover, but he's standing next to all of these like synth boards, and I was like, fuck. And it's called In the Future, and I was like, this seems like what the fuck's going on with this? And sure enough, like that record, Pablo Moses, In the Future, pick it up, dude. It's just like
I'll check it out.
Yeah, the title track, In the Future. It's just, it's like pretty straight up. It's kind of like, it's got a dub vibe, but also like kind of a Gregory Isaacs thing. Like it's kind of like Loverboy style. But then like the chorus is with like a synth modulated voice, like robot voice, like in the future, like a janky 80s robot is talking to you. Sweet, super sweet. And then Arthur Russell, This Is How We Talk to the Moon. B-52's Planet Claire, Tangerine Dream, White Clouds, Astral Voyager, Solid Space, 18th Planet, Missing Persons, Destination Unknown, and the Walker Brothers, Night Flights. So it's kind of like it's kind of a nice weirdo kind of 80s space vibe mix. You know?
Does music ever play any role in your creativity as well? Can it ever affect what you're making?
Absolutely, yes. I think that that's not specific to artists. I think that beyond three-dimensional art or two-dimensional art, the ultimate is really like music as far as like the universal channel to creativity and inspiration and, for lack of a better word, like the vibe, you know, like if whatever genre you're into, the result is the same. Like, you know what you like, you know what you like, and you know the way that it makes you feel, and you'll go back to it like your favorite food or like your favorite memory. And oftentimes, you know, like food and smell being linked to memory. Music, I feel, is even deeper. Like, I think music is by and large the ultimate inspiration. For me, it's absolutely essential most of the time. I was a pretty avid CD collector my whole life. I bought my first CD before I had a CD player. I was kind of obsessed with them as just an object. I was collecting hundreds of CDs, and then, you know, it was cooler to get vinyl. And then I was like, fuck, that's not my generation, dude. Like, I've already invested like into hundreds of CDs. I'm collecting fucking CDs. Fuck records, you know? And then I ended up working at a skate shop / record shop. So I ended up getting into vinyl and buying some vinyl. So got a few hundred vinyl, but like a couple of thousand CDs. And so collecting was a really big part of what I was into, kind of the way that collection bifurcates and you find one thing and it leads to 10 more things. I was just like, oh, that's so awesome. And I did that, you know, from the age of 12 to probably the age of 34 or something. I'm 37 now. Music was always had to be on in the studio, and the things that you learn from it, like the kind of the esoteric minutia of who did what and why and when and where, is a really interesting aspect to it. And I got into that a little bit, but I was mostly just kind of like a sound and a feel guy. If I liked it, I did. I didn't really give a shit who produced it or where it came from or whatever. I kind of got to a saturation point with collecting. I think early on I was like, well, if I have all the CDs and records, then I have this endless mix that I can always just curate myself. And I got really fucking tired of that. And I was like, I don't want to choose a record to listen to or a CD to listen to. I met my now girlfriend and baby's mama, Margot Bird. I met her a couple of years ago, and she told me about NTS, the radio station. Definite plug for NTS if they're sending out free tote bags and sweatshirts. I've barely put on a record in the last like 2 years. It's just such an endless pit, and like the quality is so high that I just find my DJs, I find my episodes, I put them on, and like I feel like there's no love lost in the collection aspect or in like the appreciation aspect, and I prefer it more to just like rely on the taste of others and just find what vibe I like and then just put it on and have a mixture too. I really like that. I used to be like a front to back kind of guy, like, okay, I'm going to listen to this album today from beginning to end, and that's the true way, you know, this really like fucking boring way of listening to music, you know. And so the variety and the mix up when I listen to this radio station is like it's essential. So that's where I'm at with music. And to answer your question, it is vastly inspiring, you know. And there are times, you know, like when I've like either danced in the studio and that's helped me kind of with a happy accident that gets me into a progression in a painting or a sculpture, or it's like that intangible vibe that just puts you in the right mood to where you have the confidence to paint something the right way or to build something the right way. And so, yeah, music is essential, I think.
When you're painting portraits as well, I know you've done a few series of them. Are there certain features of the face which you feel are kind of particularly important that kind of stand out to you when you start to construct a portrait?
I think eyes are always essential. Eyes have to be there, but it's weird. Every time I've gone back to that series of portraits, it's always when I need a break from a formula. So with the Tell Me Again series, it was very specific. There was a process, there was a concept. It was all very like, it had parameters, you know, and that became very tiresome. So I can always go back to the portraiture for just like total freedom in a sense. And to answer your question, it's mostly like you need kind of like a few reference points. I think the eyes are essential. Outside of that, you know, it's nice to have a mouth, I guess. I don't think there's any one that I latch onto other than the eyes. It's funny, like for as many as I do, like I always wish that I was better at like a nice like 3/4 or like maybe just like tilted. Like I wish I was better at intentionally getting a little more movement in the head, but I always just seem to do this like straight on idea of the face, which is vaguely symmetrical, has two eyes, and then if you can see a mouth, nose, and ears somewhere, then good for you. And I think the hair, actually, I'd say the eyes and the hair are always like the funnest part, and always like the really great indicators. But those portraits, they're really amalgams. Some of them are like I kind of made like I do like a mono printing process where I'm squeezing paint through some muslin, and then maybe I'll leave it alone, and then a year later I'll come back and paint on it, or maybe I'll collage on it or cut it up and like include it in something else. And that concept is just, you know, in tandem with like the idea of the face and all our faces, and just the overarching concept of everything being simultaneously the same and different, recognizable and unrecognizable. The realities that we all experience are based on really basic building blocks, and then our imagination kind of takes control and fills in the blanks, you know, like that's how our brains give us this congruent experience that we walk through every day and that we have relationships with, that, you know, like it's not actually processing all of this light. I mean, it is processing all of the light, but like recognizing the door and the carpet and your friend and the tree and all of that stuff is like, it's based on repetition and familiarity and like the general parameters of knowing what a thing should look like. Therefore, you're able to like, your brain is really able to just like zap it in like unbelievably detailed way, unbelievably beautiful way. Everything that you look around you is really just kind of this like continuum of details being filled in by your brain and imagination. And so in the same way, that's kind of part of what those portraits are, that you need some basic elements, and then the rest is just constantly augmenting. Like, you know, like your face that I see here on the computer isn't entirely unique, but also I could name 10 people that you kind of look like, and but it doesn't take away your individuality. It doesn't take away who you are, and it should never be meant as an insult, but it should actually be seen as a bolstering of your connection with everybody else. It would be funny like to write a list of 5 or 10 people that you kind of look like, that you remind me of, and then put those names together, and like that's who you, like that's you. You're the Rijo, Sarah, Colin, John. I don't know. Just like put a bunch of names together, and you're an amalgam, and I'm an amalgam, and we're all kind of experiencing this ever changing yet ever the same amalgam. Like I think everything that I do, the portraits, the painting series, like the way that I travel in between them, the way that I interact with other people in my environment, it's all part of this, like it's all part of kind of like a continuum, you know, or a chaotic continuum, that the longer you experience the chaos, the more you find patterns in it. That inconsistency repeated over and over again is consistency, you know, is a pattern. You know, like beautiful paradoxes like that are ever present. They're endowed into every single thing that you see and do and wonder about. And that's like so gorgeous to me, you know. Everything has like a really complicated history, but they're also like really simple, you know. Everybody is very complicated. Everybody is very emotional and beautiful. They're all very simple. They're all the same. We're not unique. We're part of a greater thing, but nobody knows what it is. It's fucking cool, man.
The thing I love about your portraits as well, though, like what you were saying about the individuality of people. Although I don't know
Hmm.
any of those people, you almost feel like the personality of them is seeping into the image itself, and that's where they kind of differ from. We live in a world where everyone's got a camera in their hand. That's where paintings can kind of excel. Is that they can incorporate another edge that we can't otherwise see into them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's actually, yeah, that's a good point. It's really nice to like say, like, I mean, I made that statement like, oh, you look like some people that I know, or I could think of some people like that, but like to see an image maybe that is, like I don't know your character, your personality. You seem very warm to me just right now, your smile, your face, and your ability to conversate. So I think that's a great point, and that's a good connection. That like if you recognize a warmth or a sincerity in a painting, if that's just the emotion that you feel in it and see in it, and say, oh, that reminded me of Alex, or Alex would love this painting. Why would he love this? Oh, well, because he's kind of like that painting. That's like a cool jump between like a tangible correlation between you and someone I know with a name and whatever, and you guys look vaguely similar. That's a really powerful connection that a feeling or like an abstract vagueness to a painting can be actually highly specified to like a real life person that or maybe even or the recognition of a feeling is also like a special connection. So yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a really great point. That the paintings do and always will have that power. People grumble, jaded people grumble about their paintings' irrelevance, or that like there's nowhere to go with it or something. And I don't know. I think that's horrible. There's true infinity inside everybody, like specifically with imagination. There's true infinity there, and paintings are one of the doorways to it, just as well as music. Is like a true door to infinity. And you may have heard it before, but you've never heard it before. Like the record that Cheap Teeth did, and the music that they shared with me. I had heard it before, but I hadn't. And it was great. And I think what like got me psyched about lending my work to their album is like I saw some people just in love with the energy and in love with sharing the energy, especially when I saw little clips of their life or their live. They'd hit like some stride, and that I've been to many music shows, and I know when that moment hits and just everyone fucking explodes, and it's just like it's so like it's life affirming, it's exciting, it's all about like love and unity. And like I'd see it like in some of those live performances they did, and I was like, fuck, cool. Like I can't say I've ever heard their music before. I could liken it to other music, but that's not what I'm into anymore. I'm not saying like, oh, it's good, but they're basically just redoing what this other person did. It's like, fuck, man, like get on board with infinity, realize this is another iteration. There's differences, there's similarities. Do they have energy? Do they bring love? Do they get people like, do they transfer it into other people? And if they do, and if anyone does that, even mildly successfully, good for you. You're great. You're helping connect people, and you're helping bring people together. And it seems like they do it on a really strong level. Yeah, it was some video of like I don't know where it was, live somewhere in Scotland or UK or whatever. I don't know if the song is called Ageless, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. Ageless Half the Devil. Yeah.
Yeah, that one seems like, like there's a number of bands, and I could be wrong because I haven't like studied their music. I've listened to the music that they've sent me, and I'm like, cool, right on, I'm down. But that seems to be one that like however far they progress in their career, once live shows are a reality again, or even if they're not, like that will be or will continue to be like one that most likely will show up on the set list, because it seems like the crowd just like they know when it's about to fucking change, and like then it fucking changes and that chorus hits, and then everyone's just like, I just got a full drink but I don't care, and I'll fucking throw it in the air and I'll just go hug someone. Like that kind of energy is so fucking beautiful. And for that reason, that band and other bands, any band that gets that going, you know, like, please do more, you know. That's great.
I think that's more important than ever now as well in the specific moment that we're in time, where there's a real need for togetherness.
Absolutely. And it, fuck man, it's challenging, and it's very good. It's essential to be challenged. Everything is just like, well, instead of having the art show, we're going to have an interactive Zoom. Or instead of having the live thing, we're going to have an interactive Zoom meeting. Or, you know, instead of this, we're going to have, and no offense to us doing this via Zoom. If it weren't Zoom, we would have had a phone call. I doubt either of us would have flown to another country to do a podcast interview. I mean, unless we were both extremely wealthy and had nothing else to fuel that togetherness, you know, and to promote that togetherness. I can say, like, even like that clip I was talking about of when, you know, the crowd, you know, explodes at their show. Just watching that in quarantine is like, fuck, I know what that feels like, you know, and like, and you'll get it again someday. I'll get it again. You'll get it again someday. They'll get it again. Everyone will get it again someday. But sometimes it's like, it'll have to be good enough to just like know what that feels like. And even, you know, for like a kid who's like 12 years old or something, who's getting into rock and roll or to whatever, not just rock and roll, who's getting into the music that they like, that gets them juiced up, to see like a live performance by a band that they're looking at or they're excited about, like, what is that? Like, how the fuck did everybody know to just like go bonkers at the same time? Like that kind of intrigue, you know, that kind of like mystery or whatever, I think is still can be powerful right now. It kind of gets them primed, gets new music listeners like really primed, young kids like who just like want to know what it's like to go to a live venue, because there is a huge many thousands of kids right now who are almost looking at like performances of shows like, shit, what the fuck is that? Oh, that's called like a concert, or that's called a show, or that's a basement, and that's where everyone's going apeshit together listening to some music, you know. And they don't have a frame of reference for, oh, that's weird, you're not allowed to do that, you know. Well, yes, you were, and you will be, so get ready, because if you're really interested in music and you want to get that, just give it time, you will be. And it's like, you know, like they're fucking revving their engines. Those kids are revving their engines. And then once it comes back again, once we're allowed to be together again, you just put them down and they're going to fucking like zoom, dude. Like, it's going to be really exciting. Imagine like what it'll be like for that show, like their first show back, or any band that you're just like, you love to go see, first show back. They're going to fucking hit the first chord on their guitar and everyone's going to just melt into oblivion and just be like, fuck, dude. Give me more acid, give me another fucking drink, or give me nothing at all. Just give me that fucking music. It kind of, you know, maybe goes back to the beginning of like, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. Then when it comes back, you just like, you love it even more. So that's what I hope for that band, and for every other band, every other musician, artist, everyone who feels love and wants to share it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've said a few times, that we kind of spoke at the start and then again there, about the sense of not knowing what we've got until it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, what would you say you're most grateful for at the moment, kind of in life?
Oh, that's easy. My son. I am most grateful for my son. He is fucking fantastic. Margot Bird, she's my girlfriend. She's also a phenomenal painter, the absolute love of my life. We met in a laundromat 2 years ago, and I've been in a number of relationships, some of them lasting many, many years. I think I had one that was about 7 or 8 years. So I've had the feelings of like thinking I'm in love before, and maybe it was at the time in a certain version. With Margot, it's like absolute true love. It's kind of mind-melting, mind-bending kind of unity. And we ended up having a child together, both of which we were a little bit afraid of, only because we're both active artists with careers in New York City, and trying to build them into bigger and better ones all the time, and that requires a lot of studio time. And so we were very nervous about how to pull that off with a kid. But if you're going to have a kid with anyone, make sure it's someone that you are like completely congruent with, that you are in love with, that you communicate really well with. And that's what I have in Margot. And so like, since I got to be with her because of the COVID lockdown. I got to be with her for 2/3 of her pregnancy. So there's a lot of bonding there. And then, of course, for the birth, and I'm now on paternity leave, and I get to be with her, for 2.5 months, and with my son. And I'm so fucking thankful for it, and all of the studio time. Since the onset of COVID, oddly enough, I've had the most successful studio year of my life so far, and it seems to continue to build. I'm so thankful for my time to make art. It's like an absolute privilege to be able to get time to make art, regardless of having a child, before my child, and during whatever. The ability to have time to make art is a true privilege, and I know that many people don't get that privilege, although one could argue you can make it happen in a lot of ways, but not everybody is as fortunate. So I'm extremely grateful that I get to spend time in my studio, and additionally to that I get to enjoy, like, my son, also continue to make work. So I'd say those are the things that I'm personally most grateful for.